The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is John Van Zwieten. I will be the host for today's webinar. I have 11:57, so we've still got 3 minutes before we go ahead and get started. I just wanted to do a sound check with everyone, make sure I'm good on my end, on my audio equipment. So anybody can go ahead and either raise a question or raise your hand, just letting me know that you can hear me. And otherwise, we'll be looking to get started in about 3 minutes. And I do see that hand raised. Thank you very much. Okay, and I have noon, so let's get started. Again, my name is John Van Zwieten. I am going to be hosting our webinar today. I'm showing my screen, so if I could, again, if I could just have anybody raise their hand if you're able to see my screen, just awesome. Okay, great. So my name is John Van Zwieten again. I am the solution consultant here at Infragistics. And just a little bit about me. My job is essentially to interface with customers. That means taking questions, listening to scenarios, just kind of talking and listening to customers, listening to what any issues or kind of concerns or desires are, and listening to that scenario and coming up with solutions based on the Infragistics product, and see how our developer tools can come in and assist in a solution to that problem. So as part of that, kind of in the spirit of that, that's how these Q&A sessions were born. It's really to increase interaction with our customers. So feel free to, at any time during this, to raise your questions that you might have. I'm happy to take them and answer them. I will be stopping and pausing throughout our webinar to ask for and field any questions that we have. If you don't want to raise a question now or get a question later, you can go ahead and contact me and let me put in my my email address into the chat. So that is my good email address. You can use that to contact me with any further questions you have. Otherwise, let's get started. So for many of us, the last time that we interacted was for the 17.0 release. Many of you were at that webinar that we gave, which really focused on our productivity tooling, especially because that was really the focus of that release, to get that unique tool set onto the market, and fill a void that really you can't get a solution for the kind of things that our productivity tools have anywhere else for Xamarin. So since then, we've had a 17.1 release, and basically that came out with 2 new controls. The 17.1 release came out, I believe, in May, where the 17.0 release was in March. So just in that couple months, we put out a couple new controls. And just kind of in general, what you can expect out of our tool suite for Xamarin is a lot of new controls coming out. We wanted to get out the productivity tooling first and foremost because, again, we saw that as a need in Xamarin and we wanted to fill that. But we have all of these great controls on our other platforms. We have a lot of lessons learned from other platforms. So we've got a ton of potential as far as porting over controls into our Xamarin control suite. So you can expect more and more controls to be coming out as we go. We're also looking to the market to see what controls people want first and foremost so that we can prioritize those. And you'll see in this presentation one of the controls I personally submitted an idea for, and it happened because I thought that it was an awesome control. I think that you're really going to like it, and it'll be very particularly applicable to the mobile space. So the takeaway is you can expect more and more controls to be coming out of this. And without further ado, let's just take a look at the controls that came out in 17.1. So I've got, if you've ever done demos with me, I like to show our Xamarin stuff on my actual mobile device. First of all, because it's a Moto G4, it's nothing fancy, it's nothing awesome. It's a pretty middle road as far as like beefy processor goes. So I usually demonstrate our stuff on that because you can see what the performance is going to be on an actual device that has nothing to do with Infragistics and is not, optimized in any way for it. So the first control that I'll take a look at that came out in 17.1 was our XamScheduler. So this, along with a lot of our other controls, whoops, looks like, don't know why that crashed, but hopefully we'll get a better result this time. A lot of our controls that we're targeting for Xamarin really focus on being pretty simple because there is not a ton of screen space to use. And so you're going to want to get your point across. You're going to want to give your user the information he or she needs using a pretty simple interface. So that's the spirit behind our XamScheduler. It is a very simple scheduling control that has 2 views. It has a month view and an agenda view. The month view is pretty simple. It's got the calendar days of August here, and you can see a bunch of different colored appointment dots that I have on my August. So I'm able to see the 30th and 31st from September, as well as some trailing days moving into August or September. I'm able to, just as you'd expect, click on those and then move directly to that month. I can drag and move between months, pretty much what you'd expect out of a month view. Just in a very Simple, very easy to consume in a small amount of space format. So below that, for any particular day that I click here, you can see an optional agenda view that you can use below or to the right of the month view. I may not want that because I may be connecting this month view to a different control that will give me some other way of showing these appointments, but this is an option available to you that's just going to show the different appointments, starting and ending times, stuff like that. The appointments, their color scheme is customizable, so you can use that dimension to give even more information. And then we have the full-blown agenda view, which is pretty simple. It's just going to show you day by day an agenda of the appointments of that day. Again, pretty simple, nothing groundbreaking, just a kind of a beautiful, simple way of displaying that in the mobile space. So the last thing I want to show you about this control is in part because I'm one of those developers who loves my dark theme. I think that a truly elite sauce developer is going to use a dark theme in his IDE. I love it. I just feel great while I'm using it. So, this sample just shows you that a lot of these different colors are customizable, and we made this nice dark theme that I really enjoy. Just to show you the kinds of things that will be available to you as far as styling goes. Our other control that I want to show you is the XamSparkline graph. So even just within our sample browser, in this frame, you can see 3 different options we're now offering you for charts. Data chart, category chart, and XamSparkline. All of these are going to give you the ability to have a number of different types of 2-dimensional graphs, whether it's a line, a column, area, and some other like financial type series, and just a lot of different options available. Any of them are going to give you a lot of options to make those basic graphs. But each one of them now kind of targets a different niche. So the data chart is kind of our full-blown, very rich option, which is going to basically enable a ton of really rich features. It has the most kinds of series that you can show. You've got a lot of different options on axes. You can make customizable axes. You can have logarithmic axes. It's the most feature-rich of them, but because it's feature-rich, it has a lot of configuration to it. And we've found that it's one of those 80-20 rules, that maybe 80% of the charts that you want are actually very simple and can you should have a very easy time configuring a very simple chart. So that's what the category chart is for. That is your 80% solution with 20% effort. Very easily configurable for very simple charts. So it's really oriented toward the developer in the case that, yeah, we don't need all these whiz-bang things. We just need a simple chart. The XamSparkline steps in, and his niche is just simply performance. It creates a very simple chart without all the whiz-bang features that is extremely light. So let's just jump in. I'll show you. We've still got 4 main modes that we most often see for the different charts: line, area, column, and win-loss. So all of those are available. And we've got a number of other features, like you can configure the axis if you want axes, markers if you want them. We've still got a bit of configuration. We've got ranges that you can show. to kind of demonstrate a point. And then we've got trend lines as kind of the main make or break. And we've got what I like here is that even though it is a very simple chart, it's still got a number of different types of trend lines that you can use. Quadratic, if you're looking for a line of best fit, you can also use like averages, simple average, exponential modified, stuff like that. But where this control really shines is integration into a data grid. It's built to be extremely performant so that you can have one in each row of a data grid. Now, the data grid itself, if you've seen me do demos before, our main story on the grid is its performance. It's made to be highly performant. Regardless if you have a million rows on it and a whole bunch of columns, you are going to be able to scroll, you're going to be able to see what you need and interact very well with the grid. So the SparkLine kind of follows that paradigm. In this small of space in the grid, I don't need all of those awesome features. I don't even necessarily need axes to kind of just be able to view it very simply, see some kind of trend line, see, okay, Andrew has been decreasing, he's been dropping off. Tom has had his ups and downs, but he's on the rise. That kind of very simple inference that I can get in this grid without weighing it down and still maintaining that awesome performance that you want out of your grid. So that's all I've got to show you as far as the 17.1 release goes. I'll pause here for any questions that we might have. Okay. So the next thing I kind of want to show you here is I want to highlight our continuous delivery paradigm. So what we've seen in the mobile space, if you're a mobile developer, you know this well, that you're tasked with rapidly putting out fixes and updates to your applications. Your mobile users, you don't want them waiting and using a less good app when you're developing and making a better good app. You really want to kick that out to your users as quick as possible. Our first step in conforming to that paradigm from a developer standpoint is our use of NuGet. We really encourage people to start using our NuGet packages for Xamarin, which are continually updated, and it's very simple to say restore NuGet packages, get the latest from our servers, and you have automatically the latest, greatest Infragistics stuff, patches, improvements, updates, things of that nature. We would prefer to get that out to you rather than sit on it and have it do no one any good. We actually had one of our DevOps engineers gave a class on continuous delivery, and he made the point that in today's market, people want what they want soon, not later, and we want to get that stuff to our customers as soon as possible. In the spirit of that, just yesterday, actually, we put out our very first proof in the pudding continuous delivery installment. It came with 2 new controls and 1 new configurator. It is, like I said, it came out yesterday evening. It's fresh off the presses. The documentation for it isn't even out yet, but I just want to go in and actually show you what we put out yesterday. So because they're not integrated into our samples browser yet, that should be coming out shortly here. I thought, what better way to show this off than to actually throw them into a brand new project, and in so doing, tempt the demo gods and inevitably come up with some kind of bug that hangs me up. But what kind of live presentation would this be if there weren't some kind of demo mistake, right? So we'll call this like live demo 17.1 continuous delivery features, maybe. And for anybody who hasn't seen this before, this is a Infragistics template that we've made for xamarin.forms. So within my Visual Studio templates, you can see we've got an Infragistics folder for xamarin.forms. And this app map is kind of the first tier to our 3-tier developer productivity tool set. And the purpose of it is to, right out of the gate, kind of come alongside me and help me create all of the boring scaffolding and boilerplate that I, as a smart human developer, shouldn't really be concerned all that much with. If I can reduce the time that I waste on that, I can increase the time I can put for the actual features that are going to make my user happy. So right out of the gate, we're going to ask you what platforms you're targeting. Currently, we have support for Android and iOS. UWP, we see far fewer market share for UWP, so we haven't targeted it yet. It is on the backlog, and if you believe that is something that you could use and want, just send me an email. I love to get that feedback from our customers, and I would prefer our customers to drive our roadmap in as much as possible. But today I'm just going to target Android to kind of speed things along so you can show what I'm doing here, or so you can see what I'm showing here. So again, for anybody who hasn't seen this, this is our app map. It's just a basic diagram of how my application is going to flow. So in this case, I'm just going to do a simple tabbed page, and I'm going to use 2 tabs to show you what Infragistics has come up with in this release. So I'll get rid of the 3rd tab, and let me name these. Spoiler alert, I'm going to show you our new barcode control, as well as we have a funnel chart. Oops. Oh, looks like I accidentally deleted a relationship here, so I'll have to rebuild it. This diagram basically shows each page that I'm going to have in my app. So this says I'm going to have a tabbed page. It'll have a tabbed child nested into it. I want this other tabbed child to be nested into it as well. So let me just hook that up with a child relationship. And then I can actually go in and change the order of the children. I guess if I'm a good developer, I should probably start with 0, right? So there we go. Okay. So this basically tells us that all I want is 1 tabbed page with 2 tabs. Very simple. And then our view model placement is going to separate things out into a MVVM model view model paradigm, which comes out of Prism, which are best practices for WPF that are just as applicable to Xamarin. So I'll just go ahead and generate that. So right now it's going in and building out all the scaffolding that it's going to take to make that tab page and the 2 tabs associated with it. It'll also go ahead and build out the Android project, which will have my Android specific code, if any, in it. It would build out an iOS project if I targeted it, but in this case I didn't, so that we can speed this along a little bit better. And while we're waiting here, this is a great time. If anybody's got questions, I can field them. So like I said, at this time for these two controls, since they're fresh off the presses, the documentation of them has not been published, but you can expect to see it soon, kind of following that continuous delivery paradigm. We want to get that out to our customers as soon as possible. All right, so I've got my project built out here, and I'll just I'll let it sit for a second because it does do a few other things in the background. So let me just kind of, well, first of all, let me target the Droid project. So we'll say set that as my startup so I can show you on my phone. So let me just kind of stop there and just show everybody what we've got so far, just to show that it works, and what I have without any Infragistics controls, just using the app map so far. So right now it'll go through and actually build this out in, let's see. Oh no. Okay. Well, this is a good lesson for anybody. The file path is too long. That is a really annoying problem that happens, especially if you name your project something rather long, and if you create a project in a pretty long file name. So instead of that, actually, this is why I created a dev folder, because this file name is a lot shorter, isn't it? So now I should be able to create this. So I'll just call it live demo so that hopefully we won't run into that snag again. Looks like I don't have to do the child order with a starting at 0. So I'll just do that. Let's still have our name them so that I know what I'm doing. And let's try that. Visual Studio should like that a lot more. That will have a lot shorter of a file path name. Okay, so we've got a question here. So have we looked into providing app map on Visual Studio for Map? So you're correct in that right now app map only exists for Visual Studio in Windows. That is the platform we've always targeted so far. When this came out, Visual Studio for Mac was in preview, and so it wasn't completely stable. It may not be totally stable at the moment, but I have heard that it's gotten a lot better. We haven't targeted it. We haven't written our productivity tool set for it yet. Again, I encourage you to send me an email so I can pass that along to our product manager and say, hey, there is support for our productivity tool set in Visual Studio for Mac. So, okay, so we're at the same point. Let me set that to the startup. Let's see if it builds now, hopefully. So we've got a question here. So assuming you select to place the view model under the view, so that would be, if I would have each view out here and then have that view model under my view. What would happen if you renamed the view file in the Solution Explorer? It's a great question. I never tested it out before. I would assume if I rename it by, clicking F12, oh, it's thinking. I would assume just because Visual Studio is awesome. If I hit F2 and rename this, it should still work, but I would have to test that out to be able to say for certain. I would assume that renaming it that way, at that point, AppMap is complete. AppMap has nothing to do with my solution right now. It will not continue to kind of maintain the solution. That's a Visual Studio problem. So as far as will Visual Studio go through and rename every instance of barcode.xaml, in my experience, it has. So my guess would be that you'd be good. But again, I don't want to promise without testing it out myself. So it looks like we're rendered now. So here's what I've got. Basic, it's a main page with 2 different tabs on it. And then now let's go in and, yep, okay, cool. It does the animation. Now let's go through and actually replace this little label with the new controls. So let's see. Since I'm on barcode, let's start there. You can see the view here. You can see the stack layout that's got our label. That's what is saying, hey, this is barcode. That's what we saw so far. So let me go in and replace this with an actual Infragistics barcode. So the second tier to our productivity tool set is our Infragistics toolbox. This is a cool addition because kind of the thinking behind it is reduce the amount that I have to go back and look at documentation, which is going to slow me down or stop me until I find the right things to kind of write out just to get started with a control. Instead of doing that, let me just select and drag on. Say I wanted a grid right here. Let me just select that and drag that on. I've got the grid, and any using statement up top is automatically applied. So in this case, I think because grid is a standard Xamarin layout, we don't need any usings. But especially like working with Infragistics controls and any other non-standard controls, you're going to need to have these using statements up there. We see that as a barrier to entry because you have to go and look up what the right thing to write here is, etc. So why not just drag this on and have it do everything for you? Of course, the impetus for the design of this comes out of the toolboxes we've seen for Windows Forms, WPF, great experiences there that we saw, so we wanted to kind of emulate that. It doesn't do the same WYSIWYG design time experience you got with those because Xamarin doesn't support that yet. But we'll get back to that. So what's cool about it is it starts out with the standard Xamarin controls and layouts. You can see I've got my cells, my forms views, and my layouts here. And then it will also go ahead and read any Infragistics NuGet packages that I've got loaded and then populate them here. So let's go ahead and load up some NuGet packages to get started here. I said I wanted a barcode, so let me set my package source to Infragistics. I've got that source set up. All that is if I go to manage, I do not have enough screen space for this. If I go to just manage this, I can show you. I've set that up to target the Infragistics server. That's all. It's pretty simple. Now I'm browsing here, and I want a barcode, so I'll find the Infragistics barcodes package. You don't want the core, you want the infragistics.xf.barcodes. And then just say, okay, yep, that's what I want. Go ahead and install that in all my projects. Cool thing about this is it's just going to take care of the dependencies for me. Barcodes is going to need more than just, you see up there Infragistics.xf.barcodes. It's going to need more than that. All of these different dependencies that you're seeing loaded is just going to get taken care of for me. And then in the future, as I'm continuous developing, I can just right click and say restore NuGet packages. It'll automatically go and get the latest for me. So again, the point here is to continue that rapid application development story that we've had and want to continue with. I don't personally want to really be that concerned about these things. I don't want to manually go in and update them. I want to get the updates easily and simply and quickly, and that's what we see NuGet kind of fitting into that story. Okay, so we're done here. Let's close that up. So now you can see it read the NuGet package that I have and said, okay, you've got a barcode ready for you. Now all I have to do is drag and drop that barcode on, and you'll see automatically it created the using statement that was necessary for it. I don't even need to know what this namespace is. All I need to know is I want a barcode, I get a barcode. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this label. And if I have a barcode, I need some kind of data to show in that barcode. So this is actually the control that I submitted the idea request for. A customer asked about it, and I'm like, we have barcode controls in our other platforms, but it would be awesome to have it for our mobile platform. And because now I can have a barcode on my phone that anybody can scan and read off, and I can input any data that I want. It kind of blows my mind. I can input any data I want. I can write hello world right here, and now I can get a barcode representation of it. Just a side note for the barcode. In order to use it, I'll need to go into my Droid project, open up the properties for it, Android options, and include the CJK encoding. That's going to enable the barcode. That's going to be in the documentation, which again is soon to come out. So now with those things enabled, let's see what we get. Oh, okay. Let's see. An odd cryptic kind of message. I was running into an issue last night about this, and if I remember correctly, I need to restart Visual Studio, but let's see. Okay, that was already complete. Yeah, let me go ahead and try to restart Visual Studio. I think that did it last night. Last night I was having some kind of issue with NuGet completing the installation process. I'm not entirely sure why, but it did require a Visual Studio restart. So I'm hoping that that's going to help me out here. Okay, let me just check my NuGet feed here. So it's showing no issues. It's showing barcode installed. Obviously, it is installed because I'm showing that in the toolbox. Let's see if we can build. One of our guests said I'm pretty brave to try this out live. Yeah, well, I try to show you it live because the purpose of this tool set is to make it very easy to do, and I want to kind of to show how easy it is to get one of these controls into an app very quickly. When I first started developing was for Windows Forms, I was just delighted. In school, I did a little bit of Java development just as an introductory class. And when we started getting into the GUI side of things, it got complex. Doable, I wouldn't say enjoyable. I was amazed once I switched over to Windows Forms how enjoyable kind of mapping out my UI was. And that is the experience that we're trying to bring here. So anyways, here's my barcode. That, I guess, apparently says hello world. If you were to scan that, you would get hello world. So obviously there's a lot more possibility out of this that you could get. You could be scanning or maybe inputting different items in shelving and automatically have that barcode shown here. You could get some kind of website or data source from some kind of data layer and show that here. I just really think that's a pretty powerful option available now to the mobile space. So, with that story kind of told, I won't beat that dead horse anymore. Let's take a look at the other control that we just put out yesterday, and that is our funnel chart. So I believe that is in XF charts. Let's go ahead and install that. And I may have to do my my Visual Studio restarting trick again. We'll see. Okay, so we've got a question here. Is regular barcode horizontal supported? We have support for this on our other platforms. We have support for a number of different barcode formats on our other platforms. I know for Windows Forms we have both 128 and QR. 128 is a horizontal barcode. Currently, QR is the only supported version for our Xamarin control. But again, because we have these assets already within Infragistics, it's not a huge ask to port them and make them available for our Xamarin platform. So again, I encourage this kind of feedback that we're getting. And please email me after this to definitely show support for that. I want to pass that on so that we can get you what you're looking for. So let's see, I've got my charts here now, and yep, okay, I've got my funnel chart. So let's open up my funnel chart view and get that in. Replace the label with a funnel chart. And now you'll see the using statement is added again. And this is going to take a little bit of configuration, which I did ahead of time. So let me just go ahead and copy paste that in. So we are going to get rid of this binding because I'm going to do a really simple data binding on the code behind this just to keep things extremely simple. But basically, this is just very, very basic configuration of it, setting the value member path and the inner and outer label paths, stuff like that. And then I'm going to actually change the selection opacity so we can see like a visual interaction as I'm clicking on each different slice. So let's go in and get the code behind for this. It is somewhat painful to do this with such a small screen space. I don't know. Actually, mine might be like configured to have like a much greater screen space because I normally do this on pretty high DPI. But anyways, and then all I'm going to do here is just copy and paste a really simple data model that we've got here. Just really simple. It's just got a label and a value. Let me include the right thing to get our observable collection. That should be good. And then let me set, okay, right. I don't have funnel here because I have to build it first in order to see the XAML instances in the code behind. So let's go ahead and build that. Hopefully it builds. It might not because I might run into the same issue that it doesn't complete the installation. In that case, I'm just going to restart Visual Studio again. I'd like to get to the bottom of that, but it may be a NuGet issue. But who knows? It's worth investigation. At least I know the workaround. Okay, so we didn't run into that snag, and now, since we've built, now I have my funnel instance, and it understands that's a funnel chart. So let me just set the data. Funnel dot, no, item source to a new, what do we call this? A test data. Okay. Should be able to save, build, and run that. See what we get. Yeah, right. When in doubt, blame Microsoft. That's the easy way. Okay, it did break when I deployed it. So let me just clean the solution and then redeploy it. Sometimes, I'm not sure why. Again, I'll blame Microsoft, but I'm not sure why, but Xamarin kind of forgets something is in the bin folder, I think, during the build process, and it causes some kind of issue that I'm not entirely sure of. Oh, looks like we got some red squigglies. Right, because it has to be built before it understands the XAML side of that. Okay, so that succeeded. Let's see if we can deploy it. Also, just so you know, I'm hitting Control F5, which is going to start without debugging. I generally do that in demos because it just speeds things along. If you've done a lot of development with Xamarin, you know it can take quite a while to build out that native code. So I just try to speed that along a little bit by using without the debugger. And it's just a little tip as you're developing. If you want to test without the debugger, it will just speed the deployment process up a little bit. So still got the barcode, and we've got our funnel chart. Awesome. At long last, I was starting to fear I might not be able to show you that, but yeah, so funnel chart, simple kind of data visualization that a lot of companies use to kind of show a process, some kind of like linear process, maybe materials or resources kind of start at the top and then move to the bottom or something, and it might show you kind of the cost at each stage or something along those lines. So like I mentioned earlier, I can tap on these and select them to, and I'm just going to show you that with a little visual cue. And then maybe I can, kind of take this a little bit deeper, select a few, and then click some kind of button that drills down into them, and I can see more about that or something like that. Furthermore, I think that this is kind of a lame representation so far because each of the slices is equal, and it doesn't kind of proportionally show you. So let me just flip a switch that, let's see, which one was that switch? Let me just consult my notes for a second to remember. Funnel slice display. Funnel slice display to, it's currently at uniform. Let's make it weighted. Deploy that. And now we'll see that the chart builds it out and makes each of the slices proportional to their value. Yep, okay, the slices are proportional. It's very easy to see what their values are now. So that's the funnel chart in a nutshell. Again, it's not a complex control, but it's just another data visualization tool that you can have in your tool belt. Other than that, those are the main things I wanted to show today. So I'll pause again here now for any more questions that we might have. Okay, so one of the questions is, will these use JSON as a data source? Generally, when you hook things up to our controls, when you set them as like directly as a data source bound to the control, you do that with a plain old CLR object, but it's very, very easy to get JSON into CLR, into a CLR object. Let's see, what do I use? If you search JSON, like C# JSON, what was, the name escapes me right now, but if you search JSON to CLR object, I think it's like the first hit, and it, Newtonsoft, that's what it was. And in fact, actually, we could probably, I think they have a NuGet feed. So I'll, instead of Infragistics, let's browse NuGet. And oh, it's the first one, Newtonsoft. Newtonsoft provides an awesome JSON to .NET conversion. Very easy, very fast. Oh, yep, and a couple people are actually answering. Yep. And then another question we have is, will it bind to RESTful services? Good question. I don't believe, again, I don't believe we have like a direct binding to it. Certainly there's a way to bring it into a CLR object, but I will actually, I'll write that down and follow up with you on that. Okay, so one of the questions is, do you think that WYSIWYG for Xamarin will be available sometime next year? So I have a two-part answer to that. The first part is good news, and it's that Infragistics actually has a WYSIWYG experience. I promised that we'd get around to that. I almost forgot, but you did remind me. So let's just dive into it. Let's see. I think I have the data. I've got the charts, right? So for example, our Xam pie chart. We have our third tier to our productivity tooling is called the configurator. So we've built it in as a quick action. So I'll click that quick action. And what that does is it actually reads the XAML. Oh, darn. It has no item source. So it actually reads the XAML and comes up with this WPF built designer that I can now use to change the different properties on it. The first thing that's cool about it is it will tell you when there's an issue rendering it. So one of the most frustrating things for me using XAML is really poor debugging support. Generally, I try something, it fails, and I have to kind of go and trial and error until I can figure out what's wrong. Well, one of the cool things the configurator will do is just tell you straight off the bat, hey, this is not going to render without an item source, a label member path, and a value member path at the very, very least. So maybe this was a bad example. Let me see something that I can configure really simply. Let's actually get the data visualization package, because those are a bit more simple, but they do have quite a bit of rich configuration that goes into them. That is really why this this configurator is really helpful. Oh, I already have it. Okay. All right, well then let's get the gauges then in that case. Yeah, because we see that as a barrier to entry. We create these rich data visualization controls that take a ton of configuration. Doing that in XAML is painful, line by line, possibly misspelling something. So, we want to get back to that WYSIWYG experience. So we're building out control by control configurators to assist with that. And I'll just show you that real quick here. So now I've got like bullet graph and like radial gauge. Let's go with a radial gauge. And same deal, I'm just going to open up the configurator. It actually reads in the XAML that I've got so far, and that's what it would display as I have it so far. I can go in and change things in on my properties grid and just see them occur in real time. So it's very easy to come in here and design like this. Furthermore, we've got a bunch of presets up in our ribbon up top. These are some things that we thought were cool you might want to start with, and maybe some ideas that you might not have otherwise had, such as this compass, which I think is pretty cool. It'll automatically go in and set all the settings that's required there. And then I can come in and change things granularly if I so desire. So even if I don't want to have exactly this gauge, it can be, excuse me, a good starting point to work with. And then similarly, we've got a lot of other ribbon options that are going to kind of on a macro level go through and be able to change a whole bunch of these settings all at once. So when I'm complete with that, I'll hit apply and close. And it writes out the XAML. It generates out that XAML, which just in the few seconds of showing you that, holy cow, started at line 24. That created almost 100 lines of XAML right there. And as I've been alluding to, not only that, not only will it generate XAML, it will read XAML. So if I were to change this color, so the backing color, and throw in like beef there, for example, and read this back into the configurator. Oh, that's my funnel chart. Here's my gauge. Read that back into the configurator. It looks like the backing isn't showing here because it's like transparent, but it will actually go ahead and read in the XAML. Maybe I can instead I'll take one of the ranges and change the color on that, or maybe the stroke thickness or something. But anyways, I could change any of these and it will read it back in and show me what that would look like. Okay, so you can see that it changed the thickness of the brush there. So that's the WYSIWYG experience that we've got so far. That's the good news. The bad news is we're kind of in a similar state to what WPF was when it first came out. It does need a WYSIWYG experience. We want it. Microsoft is not focused on it. It's focused right now on delivering other important things with regard to Xamarin. So we're coming up on 1 o'clock. I think I've answered a few of the questions here. If I didn't get to your question, then I promise you I'll go back and make sure that I do reach out and contact you. Again, you already have my contact info. Feel free to send me any other questions you have, and especially send me this customer feedback that we're getting in as far as the features that you want. Like I said, we do listen to that. I would prefer our content is driven by what the market desires. So I will personally go ahead and pass that on to our product manager, Brian Lagunas, who will take a serious look at getting that onto our backlog and prioritizing it. So without further ado, you have my contact email. Don't be a stranger, reach out. I look forward to being in contact with any of you. If you would like to see another webinar pointed at something in particular, if you want more information about something, it's my job to get that information out to you. So I encourage you to send me that to kind of direct my efforts in the future. Otherwise, thank you so much for attending. I appreciate everybody giving me your time, seeing me kind of make mistakes in Visual Studio. Fortunately, we got through all of them today. So yeah, without further ado, thank you a lot for attending, and I will keep in contact. Oh, where is my email? Before I go, let me just make sure everybody's got that again. I'll do this. And send that to all. So hopefully you all can see that. Otherwise, just in case, let me open up Notepad and do this the old-fashioned way. My email is jvansweden, that's John Van Sweden, at Infragistics.com. So feel free to contact me there. I'm also on the chat. If you're ever on Infragistics.com, you might get me chatting you. So, all right, enjoy your day. I'm going to go have lunch. Thank you for attending.